My name is Rowan Vale, 30 years old. The slap wasn't a hand, it was a sentence. It's only for family, Rowan. Cheryl's voice came crisp through my phone like a director calling cut. I was at my desk in Eugene, color correcting a portrait series, when the word family spun like a coin and landed bad side up. For Mom and Dad's 30th, she added, theater warm and stage sharp. This weekend in Portland. Tiny, intimate. We're keeping it close. You mean without me, I said. She inhaled the way she inhales before a monologue. You're always so independent. We didn't want to burden you. Burden. I pinched the bridge of my nose and let the room come back into focus. The soft hum of my iMac. The vinegar bite of Fixer from last week's dark room batch, still faint in the air. 2 summers ago, I'd wired $15,000 to fix our parents' roof and porch before winter. You're so good to us, Rowan, Mom had texted. 3 heart emojis like confetti thrown at an invoice. Last year, when Zachary was underwater on his associate salary in New York, I'd peeled off $10,000 for his loans. His reply, thanks, sis. No punctuation, like gratitude also had a budget cap. Cheryl, I said, keeping my voice flat, I sent money for this party, for the small touches. You know how these things snowball, she said, sweetening. Anyway, could you help with one last thing? Aunt Linda's airfare from California. It's only $1,200. I stared at the invisible ledger in my head, the way the little categories stacked. Roof and porch, Zach loan, anniversary extras, each line a clean bruise I'd learned to cover with good lighting. No, I said, simple as setting a shutter speed. I can't. The air on the line cooled. Wow, she said, and I could hear her smile harden. Way to let us down. She hung up before I could put the smile back in my voice. I set the phone down and watched the cursor blink on a woman's face I'd been editing, a stranger whose eyes still held more softness for me than my family's did. A ping. Text from Mom. Sweetheart, could you do $500 more for catering, just to spruce? My thumb hovered over send. I thought about the time I pulled an all-nighter to export prints while chauffeuring Dad to his cardiology checkup because his car didn't feel like starting. I thought about Cheryl's name in lights and my name in the family group chat when a bill came due. I sent it. My chest felt like a drawer I couldn't close. That night, Heidi called. She's the only person who can say my name without adding a request to it. You sound like a camera stuck on F-22, she said. All tight, no light. They said it's family only, I answered, and tried to laugh. It came out like glass. Then either they're wrong about the definition or you're wrong about the family. Silence stretched, kind as a hand on my back. By Friday, the truth arrived with an accountant's fury. Faye, my cousin who can find a decimal error with just a sniff, called from Portland. It's not tiny, she said without hello. 50 guests, jazz band, private balcony. Your name isn't on anything. I stood so fast my chair rolled. 50? Neighbors, church people, even that dentist who calls everyone sport. Papers shuffled on her end. I saw the guest list. I saw the deposit receipts. And listen, people are already asking why you're not invited. Mrs. Janet Ward is sharpening her tongue as we speak. Mrs. Ward, the benefactor who paid for the new choir robes and once told me gossip is just truth with poor posture. She has a way of resetting spine in a room. Faye, I said, thank you. She exhaled. Rowan, they used your money to polish the brass on a ship they won't let you board. After we hung up, I drifted through my apartment in a soft orbit. Kitchen, window, bookshelf, touching things like I was checking for a pulse. On the shelf, the family photo from 10 years ago. Me, Cheryl, Zachary, our parents lined up in front of the old maple. A stranger's shoulder is half visible at the crop. Mom always said it was a passerby. The edge looks like someone who mattered once, sliced into anonymity. I set the frame down. My budgeting app chimed on my phone, an alert I ignored on reflex. Another miscellaneous category ticking upward. I opened the blinds. Late winter light spilled across my desk, cold and honest. The opposite of how my family loved me. Warm and costly. I didn't call to plead. I didn't compose the careful text, the no worries if not of a daughter who knows the script. I called Heidi. Say it, she said, already smiling. I want out, I said. Not forever, just away from the gravity. I want a place where the only thing I'm invited to is my own life. Passport? She asked. In the drawer, cameras charged. Paris, she decided. You've been talking about photographing light that moves like language. Let's go where light is fluent. By noon, she'd sent me flight options from PDX for Sunday morning. A boutique hotel in Le Marais, with a rooftop that looked like a stitched-on sky. A list of cafes where writers leave better ghosts. I entered my card number without a tremor. For once, the money leaving my account felt like a door opening, not a favor owed. When the confirmation email hit my inbox, my hands shook anyway, but not with fear. With air. With room. With the dumbfounded relief of choosing myself without a committee vote. I made one more call, to no one. I opened my camera bag, checked each lens, aligned caps in a neat row, the 35mm for streets, the 85mm for strangers I'll never meet again, the 50 for everything in between. I packed a dress I never wear here because no one sees me when I'm not paying for them to. As the sun slid behind the hospital a few blocks over, the neighborhood went that blue that forgives edges. I brewed coffee I wouldn't finish and drafted a caption in my head I might never post. Chasing joy. Not a manifesto, not a subtweet, just a temperature reading from a room I finally walked into. My phone lit up with a new message from Mom. Reminder, big day Sunday. Wish you could help with flowers. No invitation, just labor. I closed messages. I opened the airline app and picked a window seat. Mrs. Ward would be in that room tomorrow with her exacting mercy. The dentist would laugh too loud. Cheryl would wear a dress that understood the lighting. They would perform family, brilliantly, without me. 2 mornings from now, I would be beneath an iron lattice that does not ask who paid for the view. Purchase confirmed. I chose my life. The plane lifted like a held breath finally released, and by the time Paris caught me, I had slept in pieces. Small, neat rectangles like the photos I'd learned to take here. Le Marais greeted me with slate roofs, shuttered windows blinking awake, and scooters murmuring like restless birds. The hallway outside my room smelled faintly of beeswax and old paper. My key turned with the satisfying resistance of something made to last. I dumped my bag, washed airplane off my face, and stepped onto the rooftop where chimneys stood like punctuation marks against a blue so clear it felt edited. I didn't post anything. I let myself be a body before being a feed. Across an ocean, a private room in downtown Portland bristled with appetite. Chandeliers threw soft coins of light onto white linen. Chairs were ghost-rich with borrowed elegance. The jazz trio tuned, notes falling like marbles rolling to the edge and back. Cheryl, updo, sequins that understood the lighting, moved like a stage manager in a gown, adjusting centerpieces, mic-checking charm. Donna floated near the dessert table, cupping compliments like sparrows. Wesley stood anchor negative at the bar, smiling with teeth he paid for in monthly installments. Eiffel morning. I took the 35mm down a narrow street where a baker slid warm air into the world. I caught a girl in red boots mid-skip, her scarf participating in her joy. Light crawled across stone the way handwriting improves with intention. I shot first greedy, then gentle, turning that greedy into craft. The tower was not a cliché from this angle. It was engineering, dreaming itself into lace. I framed tourists without faces, an old couple with hands that had memorized each other's maps, a man sketching iron. I waited for a cloud to move. It did, as if on cue, I didn't give. Back in Portland, the room filled with the kind of laughter that likes being watched. The guest list read like a roll call of people who pronounce good fortune as personal virtue, neighbors who traded ladders and opinions, church pillars, Wesley's boss with a tie the color of appetite. Faye stood near the door in an unremarkable dress on purpose, her eyes doing math. She had arrived early enough to see the invoices splayed on a host stand. Catering, bar minimums, special performance, balance due. One sheet bore W. Harris Household, MSC reimbursements in tidy black. Another listed a deposit, vocalist, non-refundable. The numbers matched nothing Faye remembered from actual needs, like roofs, like porch steps. She took a picture in her head. She doesn't leave traces when she can help it. By afternoon, I had the cafe table I wanted, the one with a chipped corner and a view of boats making the Seine look domesticated. I positioned the cup so steam became a visible thought. I waited until a gull threw a perfect apostrophe into the sky. 2 taps. Exposure down a third. Breathe. People talk about Paris like a perfume. To me, it felt like a room that doesn't ask you to be useful. When I finally posted, it was not a manifesto. 3 photos. Iron against sky. A river that knew how to keep moving. A coffee catching light like it had a secret. Caption. Chasing joy. I set the phone face down. It thrummed anyway. Phones thrummed in Portland too. Someone at table 3 scrolled her feed and made a small "oh" that fell onto her water glass. "Isn't that Rowan?" she asked her husband, showing him my tower. "I thought it was just family tonight." The word loosened a lace of whispers. The trio played all of me with the merciless optimism of musicians paid in advance. Mrs. Janet Ward did not need a phone to read a room. She saw the way heads dipped, screens tilted, the way Donna's smile began to tremble at the edges like a tent in a wind that wasn't on the forecast. Mrs. Ward approached with her purse clutched like an affidavit. "Donna," she said, every syllable ironed, "help me understand why your eldest daughter is in Paris while you throw a celebration that pretends she does not exist." Donna's inhale was a prayer without subject. "Janet, please. Rowan is independent. We didn't want to burden her. She's so busy with her pictures." "Busy," Mrs. Ward repeated, as if trying on a size that didn't fit. "Did you ask, or did you decide?" Her eyes slid to the invoices, to the band, to Cheryl, who was arranging a peony as if composure were a flower with a stem. "There is a difference between stewardship and spectacle." Cheryl appeared, smile set to theater-friendly. "Mrs. Ward, you look radiant." She lowered her voice to imitation intimacy. "Rowan's fine. She prefers to do her own thing." "Some people prefer not to be excluded from their own family," Mrs. Ward said. She did not lower anything. The murmurs now had names attached, gossip shedding its posture. A neighbor whispered to whoever would hear, "Didn't Rowan send money for the roof?" Another answered, "And for something with the party." Donna mentioned sprucing. Faye, quiet as a password, looked at Wesley and saw his hand worry the edge of a cocktail napkin into confetti. She wondered, not for the first time, who had been sliced from that old family photo. Absent people cast long, strange shadows. In Paris, my comments multiplied like starlings. Friends, clients, strangers offering tiny candles. "Proud of you. Looks beautiful. See you." I answered none, not out of hauteur, but because silence felt like something I'd earned. I walked, collecting small mercies, a dog leaning against a boot, a street violinist playing something that wanted to be Vivaldi when it grew up, a boy practicing a proposal speech into a canal because water holds secrets better. At the party, the jazz vocalist Cheryl had insisted on did a satin slick run, and 2 couples drifted to the floor, their steps careful not to spill. But the dance shared space with a new choreography, eyes cutting to screens, then to Donna, then to the door as if ethics had invited themselves and were looking for a seat. Mrs. Ward's voice, not loud, still carried. "Love is abundant. Invitations are not. Curious economy." People began to leave early and politely, the way one exits a play whose last act won't land. "Babysitter," said one, wearing no guilt. "Early flight," another, truthful only about the exit. Cheryl tightened her jaw until it could hold up her whole life. Donna's lipstick smiled without her. Wesley's apology started knitting itself in his palm and unraveled before it finished. My phone lit up once more. "Heidi, you broke the room without stepping inside it. Keep going." I looked out at the iron dreamed into lace and thought of money flowing through a house like water that forgets what it was meant for. My budgeting app chimed again. I still didn't check it. Across the ocean, Faye stood by the door and watched the party leak. She didn't enjoy it. She measured it. Mrs. Ward returned to her seat and pulled a program wrong side up into her lap like a flag. The band took a break. Silence, not on the schedule, sat down and stayed. Morning in Paris sounded like forgiveness. Soft footsteps on stone, an espresso hiss that could almost be applause. I woke to the buzz of my phone dancing across the nightstand. 19 missed calls. 3 names looping like a tired chorus. Mom, Cheryl, Zachary. I let them ring. I poured coffee instead, black as boundaries. The messages started lining up before the caffeine hit. "Mom, your post ruined everything. Guests left early because of you. How could you be so thoughtless?" Cheryl, You turned our parents' anniversary into gossip. Please, for once, think of someone other than yourself. Take it down. Zachary. Drama doesn't look good on you. You could have just called. Each tone perfectly in character, each guilt trip rehearsed. They didn't even bother to coordinate the script this time. I watched the city wake below my window, bakers unlocking their shutters, pigeons negotiating territory, and realized I wasn't angry, just empty, in a new, useful way. When Heidi called, I answered. Guess who's famous, she said. I'd rather guess who's quiet. She laughed. Good luck. Your post is viral, babe. Everyone's sharing it. People are calling it the softest revenge. I groaned, half laughing. It wasn't revenge. Sure, she said, but maybe the universe decided to do some redistribution. While Paris leaned into morning, Portland was reeling from night. Faye texted updates in bursts like weather alerts. Cheryl's panicking. Mrs. Ward told half the church what she said about you. People are talking. Donna tried to laugh it off, but Wesley looked sick. Guests left before dessert. Also, FYI, remember those extra charges you sent Mom for decorations? Found the invoice. It's not for flowers. It's for a jazz singer. $12,200. I stared at the message. The words tilted. They had used my money to hire the entertainment that played while they erased me. Heidi noticed the silence on the line. What's wrong? They bought music with my money, I said. For a night I wasn't allowed to attend. She whistled low. That's art, in its way, stealing your melody to score their performance. Not anymore, I said quietly. They don't get to use me as background noise. At noon, Cheryl called again, her tone pivoting from command to plea. Rowan, please. Just delete it. Mom's mortified. The church board's asking questions. Dad barely slept. I didn't mention any of you, I said. Maybe people just connected the dots. You wanted this, she snapped. You've always wanted attention. I laughed, short and cold. Attention? You mean acknowledgement? Yeah, maybe I did. For once. She went quiet, then tried a softer key. You know how Mom gets when people talk. She's fragile. Fragile people don't orchestrate parties that exclude their daughters, I said. Fragile people don't spend other people's savings. God, you sound self-righteous. I sound awake, I said, and hung up. 10 minutes later, Zachary's number flashed. I let him talk first. You stirred up unnecessary drama, Ro. You could have just spoken to you, like when you told me to let it go about the roof money, or when you said I was being emotional about Cheryl's wedding fund. You've had your speeches ready for years. You're blowing this out of proportion, he said, voice smoothing into that lawyerly calm that used to work on juries and sisters alike. I'm not blowing anything, I said. I'm just done pretending the smoke is incense. He sighed. You sound just like Dad when he's cornered. Maybe that's why you all hate mirrors. I ended the call before he could offer closing arguments. By mid-afternoon, the backlash had shifted zip codes. Faye texted again. Zachary's firm saw his post about you. Some people choose selfies over family. HR flagged it for unprofessional conduct. He's furious. Cheryl lost a regional theater role. The director was at the party and didn't like what he heard. And your parents? Half the church skipped their potluck table. I reread it twice, not with glee, more like disbelief that Consequence had finally learned their address. That night, Heidi and I video called over wine. So, she said, you've accidentally become a case study in boundaries. It feels weird, I admitted. I didn't want revenge, just space. Sometimes space creates its own gravity, she said. They're just feeling the pull of what they pushed away. She tilted her glass toward the screen. To Paris, to peace, and to posts that tell the truth even when you don't mean them to. I raised mine. To silence that finally means something. 2 days later, an email arrived from a Portland gallery owner who'd seen my photos online. Your Paris series caught my attention, especially the one with the coffee steam and the boats. There's honesty in it. Have you ever considered exhibiting your work? I stared at the message, heart thudding. For years, I'd begged my family to see value in what I did. Now, a stranger saw it across an ocean. I replied yes before I could talk myself out of it. Then I opened my budgeting app, the one that had been pinging for weeks. Each miscellaneous expense traced back to the same account my mother used, roof repairs. anniversary extras, family maintenance. They hadn't just borrowed my generosity, they'd built their celebration on it. Paris shimmered outside my window, unbothered and infinite. I grabbed my camera and went walking, snapping frames of rain light on cobblestones, of reflections that refused to blur even underwater. I wasn't sure what forgiveness looked like yet, but I knew what freedom sounded like. Footsteps that didn't echo anyone's expectations. The next morning, I got one more message from Cheryl. If you won't take this post down, at least stop talking to Faye. You're making us look bad. I typed back, you made choices. I took pictures. The rest is exposure. Then I turned my phone off and went out to catch the sunrise. Somewhere between the Seine and the first cafe opening its doors, I realized something simple and final. They had spent years editing me out of their stories. Now I was learning to write mine in full focus. I flew back to Oregon 3 weeks later, not because they asked, but because the gallery did. My Paris photos had caught local buzz, and the curator wanted to feature them in a spring exhibit titled Reframed Lives. The irony wasn't lost on me. 2 days after I landed, Mom called again. Her voice had the texture of someone trying to sound composed through tears that weren't ready to fall. Rowan, please, let's talk. Face to face, for your father's sake. I almost said no, but curiosity, maybe closure, won. We agreed to meet Sunday afternoon at my parents' house. The same house I'd helped keep from collapsing years ago. The same porch I'd paid to fix, now glowing with a fresh coat of paint I didn't authorize. When I arrived, Cheryl's car was already in the driveway. Silver, spotless, self-satisfied. Zachary's rental from the airport was parked behind it. The symmetry felt rehearsed. Inside, the air smelled like lemon cleaner and stale tension. Mom was in pearls. Dad hovered near the fireplace like he was auditioning for remorse. Cheryl stood by the window, arms crossed, rehearsing a victim's poise. Zachary's tie was slightly crooked, a sign he was nervous or wanted me to think he was. Rowan, Mom began, thank you for coming. We just want to clear the air. I sat. Air's been clear for a while, I said. You just don't like the view. Dad exhaled through his nose, his tell when a conversation was about to cost him pride. Your post caused damage, he said carefully. People misunderstood the situation. I tilted my head. What part did they misunderstand? The part where you threw a 50-guest party without inviting me? Or the part where you spent my money to do it? Silence, the kind that folds over itself until it snaps. Cheryl jumped in, too loud. We didn't mean to exclude you. It was a miscommunication. I cut her off. You called me. You said, quote, it's just for family. That's not miscommunication. That's a thesis statement. Her mask cracked for a second. I was trying to keep the peace. By lying? By protecting Mom, she shot back, eyes bright with defensive heat. You know how anxious she gets when I start what? Having boundaries? Mom clasped her hands. Please don't fight. This is exactly what I wanted to avoid. Then maybe you shouldn't have built a party on deceit, I said softly. That word, deceit, hung in the air like a spark near dry leaves. Faye stepped out from the kitchen doorway. They hadn't expected her. Hi, she said, calm and surgical. I came because you asked me to send receipts, Rowan. I thought I'd deliver them in person. She set a folder on the coffee table. Printouts, bank transfers, catering invoices. One highlighted line item read, miscellaneous reimbursements, $1,200 vocalist deposit. Another, roof fund transfer to event account. Mom's face went the color of porcelain. Where did you get that? She whispered. Faye smiled politely. From your accountant. You used my firm, remember? I had access. Zachary pinched the bridge of his nose. This isn't necessary, Faye. It is, she said. You all keep saying Rowan's overreacting. Numbers don't overreact. Cheryl's voice cracked under its own gloss. So what now? You want to humiliate us? No, I said. I want you to understand the difference between generosity and obedience. A sharp knock interrupted us. Dad frowned. We're not expecting anyone. When he opened the door, Mrs. Janet Ward stood there, hair set, Bible in hand, expression forged in moral steel. Afternoon, Wesley, she said. You asked me to stop by. You said you wanted a witness. Mom's eyes widened. You what? Dad cleared his throat. I thought it might help keep things civil. Mrs. Ward took in the room with one glance. The tension, the invoices, the truth blooming on paper. Well, she said, settling into an armchair, looks like I arrived at intermission. No one spoke. Finally, she looked at Mom. Donna, I told you that night. The problem isn't your daughter's post. It's your pride. Mom's lower lip trembled, but she said nothing. Mrs. Ward turned to me. Rowan, child, I don't know the full story, but I do know this. Family doesn't exclude blood and then spend her money pretending she's a stranger. That's theft of more than funds. Cheryl hissed under her breath. You don't understand our family. Mrs. Ward met her glare. Then perhaps you should start acting like one. Dad finally spoke, voice cracking down the middle. She's right. He looked at me, shoulders sagging. I let it happen. I let them plan. I didn't ask questions. I thought keeping the peace meant keeping you quiet. I'm sorry. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't perfect, but it was the first real thing he'd said in years. Mom turned away, dabbing her eyes, but her words were still defensive. We just wanted one nice evening. One night without tension. At my expense, I said, literally. Zachary tried to steer it back to negotiation. Let's talk solutions. Repayment, PR management. Stop, I said. This isn't court. It's a confession. I pulled a folded paper from my bag and slid it forward. These are my terms. Not forgiveness, just structure. You'll repay what was taken over 12 months. No emergency calls, no guilt checks, no new group texts until the last transfer clears. Cheryl scoffed. You're turning family into a contract? I met her eyes. You already did. The room went still. Even the clock seemed to pause. Mrs. Ward leaned back, satisfied. Accountability is a fine language. You all might try speaking it more often. I stood, gathering the folder. That's all I needed to say. As I reached the door, Dad's voice followed. Rowan, thank you for coming home. I didn't turn. I didn't come home, I said. I came to collect what's owed. Outside, the porch boards creaked under my feet. Fresh paint, my money. I ran my hand along the rail, the one I'd helped repair, and thought how strange it was that the house finally looked sturdy when the people inside had fallen apart. I got in my car, the folder on the seat beside me, and drove toward Portland's gray skyline. The sun broke through just once before setting, a clean slice of light across my windshield. It looked almost like closure. The gallery smelled like varnish and new beginnings. Reframed lives opened on a Thursday evening, the kind of night that made people linger over wine just to look thoughtful. My photographs, Paris mornings, riverside reflections, windows catching light like secrets, lined the white walls. Each one was labeled simply, self, seen differently. I'd spent weeks preparing, alone, but steady. The noise from my family had faded to a manageable hum, occasional texts, one voicemail from Dad about rebuilding bridges, and a short email from Mom with a subject line that read, "Can we move past this?" I hadn't replied. Some bridges are meant to stay burnt until the smoke clears enough to see the road you're on. As guests wandered the exhibit, a familiar silhouette paused by a photo of the Eiffel Tower caught through a puddle. Wesley Vale, my father, looked smaller somehow, not in stature but in certainty. He held his hands behind his back like a man at confession. Beautiful work, he said quietly. Thank you. I sent the first repayment this morning, he added, glancing at me. I'll send the rest monthly. I nodded. I saw the notification. He took a breath. Your mother wanted to come, but she thought she might make things worse. That's probably the first thing she's been right about in years. He almost smiled, then didn't. She's trying, Rowan. I know, but trying isn't the same as changing. He looked back at the photo, eyes softening. You were always the one who saw things clearly before the rest of us did. Funny, I said. I thought I was just the one nobody listened to. A rustle behind him, a presence I could recognize even without looking. Cheryl, in a blazer that screamed apology meeting. Her hair was subdued for once, the color of a curtain after the show. Rowan, she said, voice rehearsed but uncertain. Can we talk? You're already doing it, I replied. She hesitated, then exhaled. I lost the role, the one I auditioned for right after the party. Word spread. I heard, I said evenly. Her eyes glistened, but the tears looked too deliberate. You got what you wanted, didn't you? Everyone saw who we really are. I looked at her, tired of being polite. Cheryl, I didn't get anything. You gave it. You handed people the truth and then blamed me for the lighting. She winced. Mom's devastated. She can barely go to church without whispers. Good, I said quietly. Maybe for once she'll understand how it feels to be talked about instead of talked over. Her composure cracked. Do you hate me? I don't waste energy on hate, I said. It's expensive, and you've already cost me enough. Before she could answer, someone cleared their throat behind us. Faye. I think that's enough for tonight, she said. This is Rowan's moment. Cheryl turned away, muttering something about people never forgiving. Faye watched her go, then looked at me with that accountant calm. She's unraveling, she said, but that's her to fix, not yours. I smiled. I know. The next few hours blurred in compliments, camera flashes, laughter that didn't have edges. People I'd never met told me my photos felt alive. One woman said the image of the empty cafe table reminded her of freedom after forgiveness. I didn't correct her. As the crowd thinned, a quiet figure appeared near the door. Mom. Her pearls were gone. Her eyes were red. For once, she looked like someone without a script. I shouldn't have come, she said softly. Then why did you? Because I needed to see what you've built without us. I crossed my arms, unsure if it was armor or restraint. You've seen it. Now what? She fumbled with the strap of her purse. I was wrong. About the party. About everything. You gave more than we ever thanked you for. I thought love meant control, but you showed me it means release. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even enough, but it was true. Mom, I said, you don't get to rewrite what happened. I know, she whispered, but I'd like to stop pretending it didn't. She stepped closer, hesitant. Would it be all right if I came to your next show? I'll stay quiet. Just watch. I studied her, really studied her, for the first time in years. She looked smaller than memory allowed. We'll see, I said. She nodded, and for once didn't push. When she left, the gallery was nearly empty. Faye and the curator were packing up champagne glasses. I stood before my favorite photo, the one of the bridge over the Seine reflected upside down in the water. Funny, Faye said, joining me. From a distance, it looks like the bridge is floating. Maybe it is, I said. Maybe that's what happens when you stop holding it up for everyone else. Later at home, I checked my phone. A transfer notification from Dad. A short message from Zachary. I'm sorry, I see it now. I'll make things right in my own way. No words from Cheryl, just silence, which honestly felt like progress. I opened the window. The city hummed softly, indifferent and alive. I thought of Paris, the cafe light, the boat ripples, the moment I pressed post without realizing I was detonating my own past. They'd all paid some price, lost roles, promotions, reputations, but so had I. The difference was I'd turned mine into something that grew instead of rotted. I wasn't angry anymore, just free. I sat at my desk and wrote the caption for a new piece I was editing. A photograph of an open door half lit by morning. Sometimes closure isn't a slammed door. It's walking through and realizing you were never locked in. When I posted it, I didn't tag anyone. I didn't need to, because the story had already rewritten itself. And this time, I was both author and subject. No permission required.